Hello.
Retry.
I have to reboot my computer. Mike, it's right there, Ange. It's right there. Look. Oh, no. Yeah, hang on.
Yeah, try with my iPad.
Yeah, good. Yeah, please, yeah.
No, that is one.
Hello, let's try the microphone again.
It's doing really well.
It's doing really well.
Yes, we are back on.
Yes, we are back on.
Apologies for any swearing that you heard.
Apologies for any swearing that you heard.
There was a lot of swearing. And I don't know when the microphone came. Very sorry about this, folks. I don't understand.
Very sorry about this, folks.
Yeah, let's turn this sound tester off. Just give everyone a chance to catch up again. Yep, the echo. Thank you. Yes, that was. I've got another computer on next to me, so I can tell if you're getting any sound, supposedly. And there's all sorts of clever stuff lined up with maps and things. Okay. All right. Just make sure everyone a chance to catch up again. 8, 9, 10. Here we go. We're back in. Yeah, we hear you, Rob and Zoe. Thank you. I daren't touch anything. I'm not going to type any messages, nothing. I'm just going to sit my hands. And can you turn yours down a bit?
Everybody knows you're talking to me.
Yeah, we got a bit of echo, you know. Yeah, no, it's a difficult subject when you start bringing the religious stuff into it, isn't it? Yay, good, yeah. I don't know why would it suddenly go off? I've no idea. I think Mike clonked it with the books the first time, not the second time. Well, thank you for your patience. Always get a few teething problems first time, don't you? I was so determined it wouldn't be as well. I spent all day getting everything ready, and then you start and collapse. So the theme for this chat, Mr. Harris, thank you for asking. We're just doing a quick overview of the whole thing. So just, I'll go through it all over again. It's how the Cymry started off in Assyria, Middle East, went through Egypt, up into Troy, then after the Trojan Wars, migrated to Britain, which ties in with the 1500 BC migration and all the ancient monuments that we need to look at. They're not getting any historical attention. Didn't even talk about the star mounds and the people out there are finding more and more and more star mounds that map out whole constellations of stars around South Wales. They went all the way through the lost tribes and the Hebrews coming here about 500 BC, just followed up by the Holy Family after the crucifixion coming here. And people like Joseph Arimathea. So just a quick recap. So everyone catches up. Yeah, business, the business of show. Oh no, we've lost loads of people. We've still got some people still catching up all the time. We are back, Mr. Pierce. Yes, we are back. I'd love to have you on here to have the same chat that we had on the phone earlier today, all your great ideas. We'll hold on to that till hopefully you get some nice positive news. We did have more people on the last link. Frustrating. Anyway, where we got to, the big point we got to, which is where a lot of the comments are flying in, and it was getting quite interesting, was to do with Christianity starting in Britain, Western-style Christianity, which seems to be very different to the Christianity that's been portrayed by the Roman Church ever since. Because one of the interesting questions on there was, why is this such a toxic subject? I think it actually said, why is it treated like leprosy? It's a very good question. I mean, it should just be historical research. If you want to find out what happened and look into things, then what's wrong with that? Well, one of the big things that's a problem is that it does clash with the story of, obviously, what we're given in the Church of Rome about, well, basically the whole New Testament, really. It's a very controversial subject. Not so much the Old Testament, but the New Testament, definitely. And if you do some research, you find how recently a lot of the New Testament was written. But anyway, moving on from that, we're coming up to a few more people coming back on, up to the 4th century, where you have the situation of Constantine sorting all this lot out, having this big conference. Jesus is voted to become a god. And what I was talking about was where the name comes from, because the old Druidic name, which predates Jesus, and is ties in with the Trinity and the idea of their God of Yesi. And it's interesting, in British or Welsh churches, he's still called Yesi. It's not Jesus. It's not a translation of Jesus. Yeah, welcome back, Richard. More people coming back. Thank you. So Yesi, and now there's something I didn't know until I read it very recently, researching for the new book, is where the name Christ comes from. And it's not Christos. That's a translation. Apparently, this comes all the way back from the Sanskrit. It goes as far away as that. And it's to do with Krishna. It's a version of Krishna. There are always different gods in Rome at the time. So the Mithratic story of Mithras, the bull cult, Mithras, who was way back to ancient times, who was said to have had a miracle birth, and then is also related to this. We've got the Sol Invictus sun god. And then, of course, you've got the miracles that are performed by the ancient god Ea, who become the sort of root to the word earth and Easter and things like that, who's supposed to have turned water into wine and done various other miracles, walking on water, stopping storms, if this seems familiar. And then you've got the idea of I'm to be dead for 3 days and coming back again, which, of course, applies to Lazarus and Jesus. So you get some very deep water here, and it becomes a very controversial subject. So that partly answers the question of why this becomes so toxic. Is that a Star Wars mug? It probably is. Oh, yeah, this one. Thank you. Yeah, busted. There you go. There's some very clever stuff in Star Wars. And also, Star Wars, incidentally, was the name that Wilson and Blackett were going to use for one of their books, just so you know. They called it Star Wars because it was all about the idea of the star maps in South Wales, showing how Mars and Jupiter and the different planets. And something I also forgot, of course, was the Mabinogi. I'm glad you said that, because their book explained the Mabinogi was going to be called Star Wars, the real Star Wars. But and we got a lot more on that as well. The Mabinogi is astrological. Good spot. Got to be careful the Sanskrit connection. You've heard that before, have you? Well, I have to admit, Ryder, it was a very new one for me. So I think we got a lot of people back now. The other thing I didn't mention, just looking at my notes there quickly, sorry to backtrack, when we talked briefly about the Trojan War, the important thing there is how all the people involved were coming from Egypt. They weren't necessarily Egyptians. They were little petty kingdoms, if you like, in the Delta region. So Menelaus, famous red-haired Menelaus, are written about in the Odyssey and the Iliad. Of course, there's a red-haired mummy, and Wilson and Blackett are pretty confident that Menelaus is that red-haired mummy. He's been misidentified. Another book we got coming out. I haven't got my sketches here. Have I got my sketches? We've got a book about who the real Odysseus was. That goes back to all the way back to actually a much older Egyptian story about a man circumnavigating the world. And I'll be doing some illustrations for the book, which I was going to share with you. But they're under there, but I'm not going to risk touching anything. So you have to wait till next time to see the drawings. Yeah, as you're saying there, a lot of numerology connections from Sanskrit to Greek translations of the stories. Well, it does seem that a lot of the New Testament particularly was compiled hundreds of years after what we would call 0 AD. And that wisdom and sayings and philosophy like Sanskrit and Buddhism were brought from all over the world, partly to keep the various factions happy and partly to have a religion that everyone could agree on. So go with that as a bit. Anyway, trying to follow the British history a bit further. The big story then, of course, is the mother of Constantine being Helen, who is said to have brought the Holy Cross back to Wales. And that's, you can see the Nevern video. And if anyone's not been down to Nevern, it is worth a visit. I mean, this could be one of the most holy places on earth. It used to be a massive pilgrimage site. You can see the stones have been worn away where people have kneeled on them for a vision of the cross, which is supposed to be held behind this false wall, which is sort of hidden into a cave. It's remarkable, and it gets no attention at all from any Welsh tourism or anything like that, which gets onto the other side, as well as the religious problems. I'm conscious of my mug now. Excuse me. It's I'll have a pint next time. That'd be easy, won't it? There is the connections then, because of course it's not long after that. Then of course you start to see the Saxons arriving, and we've got the whole stories. Then this whole wonderful era, which has probably kept this history alive, which is the Arthurs. Obviously, the two King Arthurs, the one fighting the Romans, the one fighting then the Saxons. He wasn't 250 years old. So what we have there is a situation whereby this new religion is being backed. You've got Augustine coming over, representing the Roman Church and convincing the Angles and Saxons, if they want the keys to heaven, they've got them. And what they need to do for it is to go and beat up the British. So that really stirred things up there as well. So this whole era where we've got the second King Arthur, the more famous one. Hello, Eddie. Sorry if you missed something. Thank you for coming back. Yeah, we'll come on to the Druids a bit more, I think. Yeah, a lot of people about the Druids. I didn't know about the crosses on the tree trunks before the crucifixion. Obviously got there's what they call a Celtic cross. Not there are any Celts in Wales or Ireland, but there was a sort of old Druidic cross. So yeah, just coming on to that situation then, whereby the Arthur thing, which is massive, and this is where we have so much documentation. And I've got a list here, and I put it off the wall, in front of me. Well, this is going to show up on the camera. These are all volumes of new books that are coming out. All right, let's give you an idea. Probably would be a quicker way to start off with this, wouldn't it? And this is the whole idea. There's no dark ages. They're called dark because they don't look and see what's in them. And that's where a lot of the British history comes in. And this ties in then as you go forwards. Again, why is this toxic? We're up to this point where it becomes a threat to what later became the English throne or the German throne, the one that's currently occupying the throne in London. It's not the British, and it's the British royal family massively outdates them. Now, also coming into this area, for our American friends across the water there, is the fact that during this Arthurian period, as it's called, as we're around about the 560s, 570s, we have the story of the comet. And the comet is this devastation to Britain, is what opened the country up and allowed people to move in and for so much of the history to be destroyed. And I have to say, the people who seem to have suffered the most from it are the Lloegr, the ancient English. They seem to have been absolutely devastated. And that's why they're no longer able to defend their lands and why they're happy just to become merged in with what became Saxon and Anglo powers. But the other area we want to look into when we go through this series of meeting every week is going to be the Cymry then, the Welsh moving over to America in 570s. And this shocks a lot of people. And you go over to America, and then you have all the evidence there with all the mounds, the clothes, the physical evidence, the writing on the cave walls. I mean, this is where we come into the book, The King Arthur Conspiracy. As you know, I cover all my books. The real cover's underneath there. There you go. This one, which I don't know if we'll ever reprint that. I don't know. There's so much in it. It's sort of breaking it up into different volumes is part of what we're doing, really. But that is the connections there with America, 900 years before Columbus. As this gets more stuff. Yep, the cross always gets people going, the religious thing. So then we look at the Dark Ages. I'd say not dark at all. And then we come into the sort of beginning of this persecution that was going on. So I'm just going to check that. I think I've missed a chunk out somewhere. Comets, Augustine, Saxon Wars, King Arthur II, Cymry to America, Duplicate Emperors. Yeah, so we're going to have some volumes coming up on It Never Being a Roman Britain, No Dark Ages, and the myth of a heroic Anglo-Saxon invasion. The Cymry in America, 900 years before Columbus. Oh, the writing, of course. Welsh is the key to the history of writing, with Egyptian hieroglyphs and Colburn, Etruscan. All that comes along through following their migration trail back. All right, so we should look at then. There's some other stuff, unpublished work, which I'm going to be covering as well, which goes way back, where Wilson and Blackett give their explanation of why the pyramids are built, why there's no treasures or mummies ever found in the pyramids. That's an interesting one. And where the treasure probably is. So I don't know where. He's not the Messiah. He's a very naughty boy. There we are, on a Sunday as well. Now, I have to point out here, this isn't a case of there was no Jesus and there was no religious content. The thing I like people to think about is that in Wales or in Britain, the early Christianity took off really quickly. It became the official religion in short time, and very quickly passed over to Gaul as well, over to France. So from my point of view, from a sort of a religious perspective, from a faith perspective, why would it become so amazingly popular and such a powerful religion for people? I mean, it's worth bearing in mind, as Adam Wilson says, is that the message isn't the problem. The problem with the church is there's too much concentration on the messenger. There's too much concentration on miracles and raising from the dead and bringing people back to life and, walking on water. And modern people won't buy that. It might have worked in medieval times when you were trying to convince a very suspicious people and using fear. Whereas the Western Christianity, if you like, almost a bit more like Buddhism. It believes in eternal soul, reincarnation, redemption, all these things. And what interests me is they still, and we got the physical evidence as well as the obvious evidence, is that Jesus was still venerated as a great holy person and a holy family. So something must have happened in that. It wasn't just about the Gospels, if you like, or the miracles or Acts. There was something far bigger going on. And it was extremely persuasive. Right, anyway, let's go through some more the chat now. I think I've more or less covered the history of the world. Talk about, how long did that take? Oh, an hour. There we go. Allowing for a couple of technical difficulties. So Yeshua, not Jesus. So that's from Luke Davis there. So is that the name? Well, it seems that the name comes from 326 Nicene Conference, or the Synod, whatever you want to call it, where they took the name Yesi to keep the people in the West happy, and the name Christ, or to keep the people in the East happy. It was a kind of compromise name, and they made him a god. And of course, this goes directly against the Western Christian values. And the thing that Alan Wilson points out is that he seems to be maneuvered politically there because his father had recently been deified and made a god. That's Constantinius. So if you're now saying, that's part of the story, but I think Alan Wilson and Blackett missed some of it as well, because you also have the situation whereby they needed a new god. They wanted to agree a god. They had 5 main candidates to be god at the time. You had Mithras, let's try and get these right now, Saturn, Krishna, and 2 other major gods. And Constantine said, we want only one. You guys are going to battle it out. And it was called balloting. A bit like when they choose a pope, they have to lock them in a room and keep waiting. Well, this went on for 1 year and 5 months. And I'll put some references up, some good reading about this. 1 year and 5 months. So when Constantine came back, and they said they still can't agree on one god, they said, right, we will make this Yesi Christ or Christos name. And it's interesting, in Wales, he's still called Yesi, of course, not Jesus. So, right, 1611 Jesus, Luke. Oh, I wish I could get... Right, next time, definitely going to have chance of people to speak, because I don't know what the 1611 Jesus or 1769 Jesus is. Is this perhaps a reference to this, which we haven't come on to yet, which is volume 1 out of 7. Oh my goodness, 7 volumes. There's not many people read as much as me, but even I'm fighting. And I have to say, can I just say something about this quickly? And since we've got a few people online, I have made notes on almost every page of this. I can see on the camera. I just love it, this book. I don't agree with their outcomes, mind you, or their verdicts, but I do love it. All the stuff about the dating and why things is all out of whack. And I'm wondering, Luke Davis, can you explain a bit more about the 1611 Bible, 1611 Jesus, or 1769 Jesus? I'm a bit lost on that one. Mithras is another name for Nimrod. I don't know what that's about. I don't know too much about the Mithras cult. The only things I do know is that it was a miracle birth. There are miracles like breaking the wings of the wind god, which calmed the storm over the sea. He did turn water into wine. He did bring people from the dead. He was condemned in a rigged trial and executed unfairly. I think he was actually nailed to a tree. And then after 3 days, he was resurrected. So Sounds a pretty familiar story. The comet of 562. Yes, I should have made more of that. I'm looking at Ray there. Don't you mean I611 or J769? Right, okay. Well, if I may jump in on that, I don't know that conversation, but flamenco, the idea for those who don't know about new chronology is the idea is here that is when Wilson and Blackett do their research, they find that Troy was 600 years more recent than is portrayed, which sort of takes 600 years out of history. Well, these blokes find another 380 years somewhere else and 1,000 years somewhere else. So, according to them, this might be what you're referring to, is that Jesus actually, the whole incidents took place 1,000 years ago, not 2,000 years ago. And not the things recorded as ancient activities, like ancient Rome, ancient Greece, things like that, happened early medieval times, or in the about 1,000 years after them, when they're supposed to have happened. And I don't know if the thing you're talking about there, when you look at Roman numerals, one of the arguments they give, if you look at the Roman numerals for 1800, it's XV111. Well, they say if the X represents the crucifixion, then it's just V111, and that would be the year 800, not the year 1800. And actually, the year now 2020 is 1020. So there you go, have them onions. Are the BBC complicit in suppressing our history? Oh yeah, Monica's here as well. Fantastic. Hello, Monica. Are the BBC complicit? I think the BBC's at the front line. Paramount. I mean, on a more serious note, if you look back in the 1920s when the radio was the only way of getting any news or information, most certainly the BBC was used. And a number of things were done. One was to promote the idea of North Wales being important. Now, this all ties in, of course, to the story when you go back to King John, the brother of King Richard. Now, John lived in Glamorgan for quite a long while, and he married, I think her name was Joanna, who was the daughter of Llywelyn ap Fawr, Llywelyn the Great, up in North Wales. Now, John was made to dissolve this marriage and marry a French princess, Isabella, for political reasons. And what they managed to do was say then that the Welsh marriage was just null and void. It didn't count for anything. But what they did have was offspring, of course, who also went back to North Wales. And it's through this descent then that you get the situation where Henry Tudor comes along later and is able to raise the red dragon standard and claim a dynastic connection to John and also a dynastic connection to Wales. But it wasn't to Wales, it was to the Kingdom of Powys. It was only to North Wales. So it's only a claim really to that princedom or small kingdom, if you want to be generous. And the problem was, if your claim is based on going through Llywelyn, you have to promote that as the important line in Wales and make them the premium royal family and not the South Wales. So that's very much part of why the North got promoted, and the BBC loved that. And so all mostly North Walian historians were employed, and they were very happy to push that, of course. And that's when you get this idea that, is all about these people up north. Owen Glyndŵr is another one, which, there's a big pub right in the middle of Cardiff called the Owen Glyndŵr, like he was some great Welsh national patron. Whereas the only times he came to Cardiff would try and burn the place down. He slaughtered loads of people in South Wales. And he's the one with, of course, he's the one then with the great big pub right in the middle of Cardiff, named in his honour. I said, no, he didn't come down for a quiet pint. The comment, it was no accident. Oh, man, this is getting cracking, isn't it? Right, what I'm going to do next time, I'm going to make this so that people can come online and I work out the technology. You have to buy something to make it work, I'll make it work. But I want other people talking. I'd never heard the comic was not an accident before. Still can't speak Welsh in Houses of Parliament. Oh, yeah, we had Paul, I've got his name now, the Newport MP, wasn't it? Justin, please could you write more about why the comet was no accident? Summoned by sorcery against the true Holy Spirit. Wow. Sorry, let's look at this. That's true about Glyndŵr. Thank you, Monica. Yeah, no, it's strange, isn't it? We got the two big places in the centre of Cardiff. You got St. David's Centre, and David was nothing to do with Cardiff, and was actually a bit of a pain for Arthur if you look at the stories. And all the Cardiff saints it could be, of course. We got the St. David's Shopping Centre, which gets on to the whole story of who the patron saints of Wales are and why David gets glued in, and suddenly David, his name becomes David becomes Dewi. His name wasn't Dewi. His name was David. Dewi does not mean David, and it seems to be another ploy of the mainstream burying the real history. So David becomes his patron saint. They said Dewi, which means one with God. So there we go. Jesus buried near Fishguard. No, yeah, so we're not far from Fishguard, yeah. Keep it going, right, okay. Well, let's go on to, what else can we have a talk about here? Oh, could have been the reason for Christianity taking off. I would like to know, I'll tell you what, there's a question, and if people got any suggestions, there's one part of the whole migrations, which is very difficult to give a good answer for, I think, and that is, why is it that Brutus, the descendant of the Romans, the descendant of Aeneas, might have been Etruscan, which would tie in with the people in Anatolia, why would they so readily accept him as leader? And when the Cymry migrate and turn up in Wales, and I would suggest they were the Luwians, by the way. If anyone's looking for something, look for Luwians, Luwians. I'll just type that in because it's a funny word, Luwians. It's a made-up word by a German professor. And there we go. It means people living in the alluvian flats, I think. And they found a whole civilization around Anatolia, which they can't explain. And it all disappears around about the time when the Cymry supposedly disappeared from there. And the problem he has is that, of course, they're not aware of Troy being the wrong date. Right, Christianity went backwards after the comet. I'm not quite sure what that means. Like to know about Arthur return. Oh, the return journey from America we're talking about there, Kevin? Yeah, we're going to open this up so people can talk as well. We'll get the technology sorted for next week. This could be good fun, I think. They blamed God, for the comet, I suppose. Yeah, sorry, it's difficult for me to follow up because there's a lag as well, isn't there? So I'm probably saying things totally out of sync with the comments, and I'll let you carry on with the chat there. It's very interesting. Yeah, so one of the questions I would say, one of the interesting things is how could Brutus turn up 500 BC thereabouts and be accepted as the ruler, and the Cymry seem to get the best, first pick, if you like. You know, they have the Wales, especially for that era, with all the copper and tin and coal, quicklime, copper, gold, lead, coal, whatever you need, it's all there. So how can they get the best bits when they turned up late? Yeah, my geography of West Wales is not brilliant. I don't know how close to Fishguard. And we're looking very much near Dinas Cross, aren't we? So it's not far away. No, the end of days, because Christianity was controlled by the papacy, Ross. Well, yes. Well, I mean, the term papacy, I mean, Roman Church anyway. The papacy didn't really come about the word pope until 600s, but yes, I'd go with that. And it's a definite threat, isn't it? If you've got if you want to be very cynical, and it's conjecture, I don't like to get into conjecture, but the Romans or Roman Empire was run at great expense with loads of legionaries and expensive armies being maintained across Europe. And then you can replace all that and just run it all with a faith, which demands obedience, and demands 10% of your income, and paying for your sins to be repented and everything else. And they actually fight for you. So it doesn't really. It's bad news to be the people on the other end saying, actually, this isn't the story. We've got the real Jesus here. So there we go. I don't trust any dates in history books. No, I think dating is becoming very difficult. As you know, I'm going to make the video all about carbon dating. For example, I'm going to Twitch my carbon dating is complete nonsense. Absolute nonsense. Oh, Monica. Yeah, Monica's writing the book into German translation. Oh, well done. Yes, I'm looking forward to seeing that. Yeah, I just want to mention there, we should have more. Let's hope we get more people across Europe involved. I have to say, when it comes to Germany, if you look through the history, we owe more to German historians than English ones already. I don't know if it's because it's not so sensitive for them. If you look back at the hieroglyphs, for example, there was German. Von Bunsen, writing in the 1850s about the Welsh language clearly being the language of the hieroglyphs, and the English academia absolutely refused to listen to it. And you got like people like Bruch in that. There's a lot of good for you, Monica. I think that's fantastic. For those who don't know, look out for it. Monica's actually is it just translation, Monica, or is it? I think it's mostly translation. Taking Alan's work into German, which hopefully open up another market for people. I think that's fantastic. I know from my own experience what a massive project working on their books is. I have to have a chat with you sometime, Monica, because I want to know how much editing you're going to do, because if you do a straight translation and halfway through a paragraph or a chapter, you realize you've already translated that bit. And the whole half a chapter's been translated from, been copied from a couple of chapters earlier. Yeah, that's one of the reasons I don't like to read the books in full on is because of the repetition. Yeah, but well done, Monica. That's brilliant. And but be aware that just print it as it is. You need some light touch. Let's just say a light touch, but just to put things in a little bit of order. Don't actually change the words of the great men. I daren't touch the microphones yet. No, it's buried. Oh, I'm so keen to show you some pictures I've done. No, I can't. They're going to go bonkers if I turn the stream off now, wouldn't they? What time is it? Oh, another half an hour. Okay. Right. Do you think the French history of Arthur has caused any problems when trying to prove the real history of Britain? Yes. Well, the problem is it gets complicated, these questions, doesn't it? Good question, Richard James. Thank you. The difficulty is that what do you call? And also, people also discussing what does Ich Dien? That's on the Welsh rugby shirts, the Welsh badge, the Prince of Wales fellas, people like that. ICH, Ich, and then DIEN, for those who are maybe watching this later and can't see the chat. Ich Dien is supposed to mean I serve, and it's supposed to be, the official story, let's go that quickly, the three feathers, to my knowledge anyway, are relate to the King of Bohemia. He went to the Battle of Crecy, I believe, and was blind. But he's so determined to fight, he had a knight either side of him, and they sort of jostled him into the battle so he could get himself stupidly killed, even though he couldn't actually see what he was doing. I mean, anyway, they're so impressed with his bravery. I mean, complete madness, you might think, that they took his crest of arms, which turned to be 3 ostrich feathers. And that's supposed to be the 3 ostrich feathers. And it's a sign of service. And this is why a lot of Welsh people are very much against it, because they see it as a foreign symbol. And this one has been adopted, of course, by Prince Charles. And I used to live in South London. And I remember once when I rented a flat, I got a letter from the landlord and it had the 3 feathers on it. I lived on Harleyford Road, right opposite Surrey Cricket Ground. And you know, his Surrey cricket team also has the 3 feathers because it's Prince Charles's personal logo. And he owns half of South London as well as Cornwall and whatever else he owns. So people resent that. But I would go back further, much further, and say that's possibly an allusion to one of my favorite books here. I like my book pile. Oh, don't hit the microphone, I hear people saying. Is it still working? Good. I always make my own covers on my books, but if you look at the original cover of Prehistoric London by E.O. Gordon, it's a fabulous book. There is, come on, Ross, you can do it. There's the old Awen symbol. And that could well be the symbol of Wales. I know they stick out instead of in, but it's not much of a stretch to see that as the 3 feathers, is it? So I think we have to be very careful before we reject the three feathers. I got a feeling it's a very, very ancient reference to the Awen symbol. I know I'm not the first to see this, but there you go. It's that's one, and the dragon as well. Oh yeah, well the dragon's a similar thing, isn't it? This has been. I mean, the flag itself was invented in 1976, I think. Red dragon on the green and white background, with the green and white, of course, representing the kingdom of Powys. Gwynedd. Apologies. The green and white. So once again, you got this idea of promoting North Wales as part of the flag, but the dragon's far, far, far more ancient. So, sorry, I missed a bit of the chat then. Oh, what was the other one we were going to mention about? We went back to 15, didn't we? Hang on, can I scroll up these? Yes, I can. Brilliant. Oh yeah, the French history, has that caused any problems? Well, yeah, I think it probably has, isn't it? What's Monica said? Translation, basic knowledge about Arthur. Well, of course, the other question as well, people always leave out of this, is that when William the Conqueror came across in 1066, almost half of his army were Bretons. And the name Breton is Britons, because they'd already colonized that part of northern France. And if you look at the first, funny enough, the link with the current Duke of Cornwall, His Majesty, Charlie, the first Duke of Cornwall since the invasion was a Breton. And he's awarded this by William for his conspicuous contribution to the battle against Harold. So he was a Breton. So I would love to know if anyone out there wants to do more research into the role the Bretons played in the invasion and how much of it was actually British, not a Norman invasion at all. That would be interesting to look at. Good night. My nephew is called Xavier. Oh, I've got a son called Zavi. So there we go. Yeah, the dragon. One who can see clearly. Well, so dragon is could be connected with the comet. You also have the word dragon in Welsh, which of course means leader or general. This way I have Arthur Pendragon. He's the head general. So the word dragon itself is has a very direct meaning in the Old Welsh dictionaries. And you could take that word all the way back thousands of years to meaning a general or king. So I think that's where the word dragon comes from. How exactly it's used is more difficult to ascertain. But there's a passage somewhere, and if someone can help me, I've been looking for ages. I read it a few years ago. Alan Wilson describes in detail, or Wilson and Blackett, describe in detail the dragon and what it symbolizes. Does anyone see where it is in the books? So I keep looking through and I can't find it. The point was with the Welsh dragon, you've got the head looks like a wolf, and it's got eagle's talons. It's got wings, which most dragons don't have. And the different parts of the body all told a story. And I'd like to look at it again now with the knowledge of hieroglyphs. But I think it goes right way back. So Enigma Records is, did your mother call you that? Is the etymology meaning one who sees clearly? Oh, that would fit with a general, wasn't it? Neighbor of Draco constellation. See, the other thing, of course, is that I don't know about Satan. I think they were the Christians. So I don't know. Anyway, maybe they say you have to be a Christian before you can believe in Satan. But there you go. There's the you mentioned. Sorry, let's just finish on the dragon, and we come back onto St. George again. With the I lost my track now. With the dragon, one who sees clearly. Oh yeah. Of course, the other thing, of course, is the. If you look right back to ancient times, this ongoing battle between the air powers, represented by eagles, and the land powers, represented by reptiles or snakes. And throughout history, you see eagles with snakes in their talons. If you look currently, you've got the American has an eagle, Russia has a twin-headed eagle, which ties in. And the eagle might be a representation of the phoenix, and that goes all the way back. And this constant battle between the forces of the air and the forces of the eagle against the snake. Your brother did. Okay. So I don't know, dragons. Yeah, let's do a whole thing on dragons, shall we? Why do we see dragons as wise and often depicted wearing glasses in modern tales? I don't know. Maybe it's a Chinese thing. They got a reputation of wisdom. See, it's interesting, you got dragons in China as well, haven't you? But of course, they don't have wings. They look very different to Welsh dragons. And if you look at next time you look at one, check it's got a wolf's head, not a dragon's head. How weird is that? Another thing then. Oh, sorry, I was talking about the serpents, wasn't I? Well, this ties in with the form of what they call snake worshippers. They didn't actually worship snakes, where it seems to have been. Well, maybe they did. I don't know. Do I? But it seems to have been on the mounds. If you look, there's a path leading up to the mound and a curve like this. And as it goes up the mound, it makes a spiral. And this would be the procession. And that ties in with a form of religion. And they were called snake worshippers because that can resemble a snake. Now, there's a gentleman I'm in contact with, and I have to apologize if he watches this. It's been a couple of months. He's done a lot of research on these snake mounds in Kentucky and in North America and trying to work out the significance. And if you plot them, you will see that they're actually not random paths. It kind of not very straight. They follow astrological paths of certain planets or the sun, that kind of thing. It's very clever. And one of the theories about Patrick getting rid of all the snakes in Ireland, of course, there are snakes in Ireland. He didn't get rid of them all. And one of the theories is that he actually killed what they would call the snake worshippers, who had this ancient form of worship. And the way he did it was supposed to be quite brutal, where they had a sort of an entrance at the top and they got bricked in and burnt to death. It was rough in those days if you had the wrong religion or the wrong way of practicing. So, yeah, Serpent Mounds USA. That's right, says who. Yeah. The same ones you see in Wales and Ireland, you see in the USA, which is another piece of physical evidence to support the possibility of the Welsh having gone there in the 6th century. So there you go. So that could be the snake, the dragon being a sort of glorified version of the snake, perhaps. It's very hard to be certain, isn't it? I'm always a bit nervous when people are too confident about things like this, because it's very hard to know, isn't it? The City of London has them at their boundaries. Yes, it does indeed. And also, you notice the City of London, because there's another comment on the comments just then, talked about Archaeologists getting the first coat of arms. And the dragons at the City of London are very similar to the Welsh dragons. And also you will see the red cross on the white background. This is the symbol which obviously the English use now, as does Georgia and a couple of other countries. You've got parts of Portugal, things like that. But the original story, as has been asked for again, going all the way back to when the Holy Family and the survivors of the crucifixion arrived in Britain, Archaeologists took over the command of the British armies while Craddock was being held captive in Rome. Craddock did his 7 years, came back, gave his pardon, and you can see his burial up in Craddock, near Bridgend, not far from here. Now, Archaeologists is not a name. That means sort of the commander, I think it is. It's a title. So he was sort of the general while Craddock was in absence. His name was Gwairedd, which sounds a lot like George. Now, when I put a video up about this, I didn't put it very well. I think a lot of people... yes, thanks, Rob. I'll come to the whale as well. When it came to picking George, I wasn't trying to say that the name George has been taken. There was a George, and he was from wherever he was from, but he was not the original George. Now, that red cross on the white background, of course, is next to the dragons on those markers around the City of London, just referred to. Rob, thank you very much, Rob and Zoe. The serpent, while we're on the serpent, we've got one in our group who's going to have to do a whole show by himself. He's done so much on this. It's amazing how this serpent symbol weaves its way through the landscape, the topography, and the history of Wales. And what you find is there's an area, I'm going to get this wrong, and it's near Crickhowell anyway, up towards the Black Mountains, where you can clearly see, Rob's done a lot of the research on this, the symbol of a snake trailing through up between the hills and the mountains. And it just seems ridiculous if you hear it on its own until you see all the areas around it and what they represent and how they mark out things as well. And then you're like, all right, maybe it's not so random. Have I got my star chart? Yes, yay, I've got a star. In my extensive reference library, which is the windowsill. And what was amazing, I'll do a little bit about star mounds. I was going to say this another day, and I'm losing my voice. But anyway, is that this is called a star map. You're not able to see it very well, but trust me. Trust me. Anyone who says that, don't trust them. It's a star map anyway, okay? The point was, on this, what we're trying to do is, like I say, we're just out my window over there is the Garth Mountain with the 3 mounds that's supposed to represent the belt of Orion. And you start from that, working out your map. And this is where the Mabinogi comes in, where you have the what's it called? Burgur, the board game they play. And it's actually Arthur explaining how the star maps work. And all these knights that are coming in, like Peredir and all that, they're actually the planets moving around. And the whole thing's brilliant. I mean, how Wilson and Blackett worked this out, I don't know. But once you've seen it, you can never unsee it, okay? It's fantastic. So one of the things we were trying to do is plot this mounds, and we'll do more research on that. And there's a few people working on this. We've got Hugh, we've got Tim Lewis doing great work, and there's Rob, who's on here, and Rob and Zoe. Robert Pierce. There's a bunch of people going around and plotting these, and then we've got Dixie and Darren, and they have plotted hundreds and hundreds of mounds all around this sort of Gethley Gale area, and up from there, and you can actually see the whole constellations. So we've got an astronomer helping us now called Hugh. Hope his mind being mentioned here, and he's used his mathematical programs and his plotting to work out exactly what these mounds are aligned to and what they signify. And it's just, I mean, it's very hard to control excitement. It's so exciting what's been found. And one of the things we have to bear in mind is this is a round solar system on this map. You tend to see, you look at star charts and that, you have like, Virgo and whatever, Pisces and all that. Hang on, Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer. See if I can remember them all. Leo, Virgo, Libra, Scorpion, Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius, Pisces. Either I can remember them all or I have them written just there. You can choose. Anyway, but when we were working out there, we're thinking this serpent that Rob's found is miles up. I think, what the heck's the serpent doing there? And it's like, what's this got to do with star mounts and all that? And then I was chatting to him on the phone, and as I went across, so you got Orion, there's the center. And as we went up and worked it out, there's this little star thing called, I'm going to put it in front of the camera in a second. There it is. Serpens. I don't know if you can see that. Yeah. And that was weird. And then, where it gets even more weird, if you follow what Rob's research, and this is the kind of thing we talk about on Sunday evenings, is that where the head of the snake is now this incredible landmark, which is known as the whale on the hill. And you can see it's like a massive, the top of this hill has sort of been cut to mark out the shape of a giant fish or a whale, and it's called the whale on the hill. And that whale on the hill sits directly on top of the head of the serpent, in a sort of way of saying that this is the new Christianity, this is the fish, the age of Pisces, and it's sitting on top of the old serpent worshipping or snake worshipping. And if this starts to sound far-fetched and ridiculous, pointing then towards this, you have a sword in the landscape. I mean, massive. We're talking massive here. So the snake's like, 7-8 miles long, okay? The sword then points at the head of the serpent. And of course, you get the whole thing about St. Michael and killing the dragon and, the devil. And sorry, my head's turning a bit, get a bit late. But the St. Michael, when you get to the east autumn solstice, that's the word I was looking for, you get to the equinox, the equinox and all those fire rituals and all that kind of thing in Christianity. And there's a church there, bang in the right place. And in that area, it's a fascinating area. You've got places called Zion and various other places. And you start looking into the names, what they mean, and how much hidden history is around that area. It's absolutely fantastic. So the depth of any one of these subjects is so much. Thank you, Arthroyce. I'm glad you've reignited the fire. And that's probably long enough, is it? I know my children have gone to bed. Oh, there's John. Hello, John. Excellent. Lots of thumbs up. It's good to see it. Good to see everyone joining in. So what I'm trying to do for next week is get it sorted out so that people can, we can have some chats, you know. I can do that screen sharing thing. I have to say, I'm better the history than technology. Fixing things. You no idea how long it took just to put this black sheet up behind me so it didn't fall down. So if anyone knows practical things and stuff like that, that'd be great. All right, there's a couple more questions in just quickly. What have we got? Help, please. 1383, 8th of June. Richard II of England signed over the land and its pertinences of 3 kingdoms to the King of Wales. John Fowley, Fowley perhaps, at the time the Lord High Constable. No idea. No idea. Yeah, hopefully it'll go straight up to the YouTube channel and it will be on there. I can't promise, Craig. I'm going to try. I really hope it does. It'd be a real shame not to have it on there to look again. I know most videos get quite a few hundred, and we're on 40 at the moment, so I think people would gradually pick up. All right, folks. I hate to bring this to a close, but my family's disappeared, my tea's disappeared, my drinks disappeared, and for you some ideas for next week's chat. Thank you, Rob. Done a great job, he says. Thank you very much. Well, I hope everyone enjoyed it. I loved it. It's got much better than I thought. Well, you know, apart from microphones not working, false starts, all that kind of thing. But the chat thing's great, isn't it? Hopefully we can save the chat thing as well. Right. I don't think I'm being called away. All right. So love you. And let's keep going. And there's lots more to see and talk about. And thank you very much indeed. Oh, look out. You're supposed to be in bed. I'm being gate crashed. What are you doing? Looking for story time, is it? Oh, I don't know. What do you reckon? I think half the walking. No, you want to finish Scribble Boy? Yeah, well, what can you do?
You are coming off the walk.
Yeah, we'll have half the walking later. Oh, they're all coming down now. All my sons are coming down. Oh, you're supposed to be in bed, asleep. All right, so wave goodbye. Just say goodbye, all right? Is everyone going to wave goodbye? They don't look very ready for sleep, do they? All right, then. Good night, everyone. See you all next week, okay? Bye. Nostar hi, nostar heddwch. Say nostar. Come on. Nostar heddwch. All right, bye-bye. Tell them about Peredur. Yeah. Cheers. Oh,